Hey guys, it's Jenny with Art for Good. So today we're getting outside. It's a beautiful day here in Florida and we're gonna make our own floating canvas frame. I was researching how much it would cost to buy a floating frame for a 10 by 20 piece that I had commissioned, and it was going to be about $50. So it was sort of a wake-up call to me to wonder if perhaps there's a way to make your own. So I have an idea to try and make my own frame using this board that I bought from Lowe's, which is essentially just a corner molding that comes in about a 9-foot sheet. And so anyway, let's see what happens. So I listed everything that you'll need to get started here on this piece of this video so that you can pause it and refer back to it. I'll also put links to these direct items that I used in this video in the description below. I wanted to note a couple things though. One is that the wood that we're using today, the outside corner guard, is perfect for a canvas that is less than 1 inch thick. So if you have, say, a gallery wrap canvas, this is not going to be the right dimension of the wood for this exact project. I'm sure you can find other videos though for that type of a canvas. So I'm working with a 10 by 20 canvas today, but you can adjust the dimensions that I'm displaying here to any size canvas that you're working with. So the first thing we're gonna do is just cut off the corner of one end of our molding here, and that's gonna be at a 45-degree angle. So every corner of the frame is gonna be a 45-degree angle cut, just in opposite directions. And as long as all of your angles are 45 degrees and the pieces, the length of the pieces, I should say, on each side of your canvas frame are the same size, then you're gonna make a perfect rectangle, I promise. So once I have my first angle cut, I'm gonna measure the inside piece here is 9 inches. So a good rule of thumb is to take off 1 inch from the actual width of your canvas, and that's gonna help you measure your first cut. So I'm just alternating the degree here to the 45 degrees from the other side for this second cut. So I'm gonna use these red stoppers here on my miter saw just to help keep that piece of wood snug. And then I'm just gonna saw. So here we go, our first piece. As you can see, we have alternating angle cuts on each side. If we do that for 4 pieces, we should be good. So I have my 2 short pieces now done, and I'm just gonna do a quick check to make sure they're exactly the same length. And we're good to go. I'm just placing them together to make sure they form a rectangle and everything looks good, and I am super happy so far. Next, we're going to go ahead and glue the pieces together. So I'm using a basic wood glue, and I'm just putting a little bit on the end, and then I'm going to put them together here. Now you're gonna need some kind of a clamp that you can hold the wood together or press it together with some pressure in order for it to dry properly. So if you have a corner clamp that will work, that's perfect. Here's a workaround that I used, which is bungee cords. For this size canvas, I happen to have bungee cords on hand, and so I decided to use those for keeping it together while it dried, and it worked perfectly. Okay, so next we're going to use a sanding sponge to just give it all a light sand all the way around. You know, this was sort of unfinished wood, so anytime you're working with unfinished wood, you wanna make sure you're sanding it down before you do any kind of staining. Also pay special attention to the corners where there may be some glue that you want to remove, because that's gonna affect how the stain adheres to the wood in those areas. So I'm using this Less Mess wood stain in a color gray. And so it's a really easy applicator that it comes with a sponge on top, and I'm just sort of putting in a first coat. If you find you have trouble getting into the corners, you can just use a paintbrush to make sure that you're getting each and every spot. And then once that's done, I'm taking just a dry cloth and wiping off any excess from the frame. So I ended up doing 3 coats to get the perfect color. And here it is. Okay, so we're just gonna now work on positioning the actual artwork inside the frame so that we can install it. You can see I put a towel down because we're gonna have to flip the art over on top of a soft surface would be ideal. So right now I'm just measuring the gap across the canvas on all corners to make sure that it's completely even and getting it into the right spot for installation. You also want to make sure to write down the size of your gap and so that you can refer back to it when you flip it over, and it'll help you figure out where the edge of the canvas is so that when you're installing the frame, you're not gonna accidentally miss the canvas piece, right? Because the goal is to screw from the back of the frame into the canvas, and it's a little bit precarious at times, so it's helpful to have that measurement of where the canvas is. Once you have it placed in the right spot, I use just painter's tape to tape it down in the right place because I'm gonna have to flip this over and I don't want it to budge one bit. So I sort of generously used tape to get it to stay. Okay, now I'm gonna gently flip over the art very slowly because I do not want it to budge 1 millimeter. All right, great. So now I'm doing my measurements. Here, I'm with such a small frame, I'm just gonna do 4 screws, 1 on each edge. If you're doing a bigger frame, I'd suggest doing more. So I'm just marking halfway in between each side so I know where the middle point is. And then I'm using that measurement of the gap to determine where the canvas ends. And then I'm placing a mark where I'll do the installation of the screw. So I'm using a 1/16 drill bit, a very tiny drill bit to just get a hole right where I want the screw to go. This is gonna help protect it against cracking when you go to install your screw. And I guess I should say, if you don't want to use screws, I think you could go ahead and use nails of some kind. I wanted to make sure that it was really installed very solidly, so I used a wood screw. So now I used screws to install the frame. Now I am so excited and happy with how this turned out. You know, being the first time that I did it, I wasn't sure how it was gonna work, but overall it was really simple. I think I took more time editing this video than I did to make the actual frame. So anyone can do this, don't be afraid. But if you do find that you are not really willing to put this much time and effort, or it seems a little daunting to be sawing wood and what have you, I totally get it. And I have a video right here that's going to show you how to install a pre-purchased floating canvas frame. So click right there and watch that video. Well, that's all I have for today. If you aren't a subscriber, I hope you'll subscribe and tell me what you think about this process and how it went for you if you tried it in the comments.